Welcome to Global Citizen Life podcast. On today's show, we have Kaitlin, and thank you very much, Kaitlin, for joining us today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I am very excited for our conversation.
Excellent. So, can you just give us a little bit of background about yourself and your business and kind of what led you down the path that you're on right now?
Yeah, I definitely can. So I'm Kaitlin. I live in Houston, Texas with my husband. We have two kiddos, a 2.5-year-old and a 10-month-old. So our hands are quite full. And I would just be so sad if I did not also mention that we have our Goldendoodle Guppy, who really just is the glue that keeps our family together. Um, So, yeah, that's a little bit about me personally.
Mhm.
Professionally, I own a business that's called Think Happy Co. Think Happy consists of a book, a podcast, and group and private coaching that really focuses on time and task management, building sustainable habits, and keeping your cup full. So that's a little bit about me professionally.
Excellent. That's great. And so how did you start your company? What made you think that, like this is what I want to do. This is how I want to help people and do the things that you're doing. How did that come about?
Yeah. So I feel like I can best tell this story just by starting with my first job out of school, which I was in marketing at Chick-fil-A. And for your listeners who live here in the States, specifically in some of the more southern states, they will be very familiar with Chick-fil-A. Um, and so while I was working at Chick-fil-A, I just got to see firsthand, how being a business owner puts you in a position where you really get the opportunity to serve other people. Which so I realized from, a pretty young age that I love this notion of getting to serve other people. Well, I worked there for a couple of years. Then fast forward, my father, who owns a marketing company here in Houston, actually snagged me away from Chick-fil-A. And what's funny about that is I used to always tell people, the only person that could take me away from Chick-fil-A is my dad. And lo and behold, he came to me with a job offer
Mhm.
that I just couldn't say no to. It felt right. And I worked with him for almost 10 years. So, and I worked with my father at the family company for almost 10 years. And truthfully, for most of those 10 years, I thought that that company would be the company that I ended up calling my own one day. And, it was the best place for me for all of those years. I am so thankful for it being such a big part of my journey. I truly learned so much. My father is a natural coach, and he just poured into me for that time. Um, but I could not help but have this nagging voice in my head that, Kaitlin, this might not be your forever job. So kind of in the background while all of that is happening, I wrote and published a book in March of 2020, and it outlined 5 pillars to incorporate into your life to become the happiest or best version of you. And the thinking behind this book, or I guess it's not thinking, the inspiration behind this book was I had started to notice that people in my life kept asking me the same question over and over. And that question was, Kaitlin, how are you always so happy? And my answer to them would be, well, it's not that I'm always so happy. It's just that I'm intentionally doing my best to create a life that I'm happy about, that I enjoy living. And so those pillars, fast forward, have now formed Think Happy into not
Oh,
only being,
sorry, Caitlin,
no,
you
that's okay.
totally froze. You froze, and people kept asking you the same question. And then since then it froze, and I was like, I see the microphone going, but I'm like, Caitlin, can you hear me? Can
Oh
you?
my gosh, you're like, what's the question? I'm on the edge of my seat.
Yeah, and I was waiting, and I was like, maybe it'll just take a second. I'm like, it's not coming back.
I'm sorry about
I'm
that.
sorry. No, I'm sorry again. So can we go back to the same question?
Yes. So The inspiration behind this book really came from I started noticing that people in my life just were asking me the same question over and over. And that question was, Kaitlin, how are you always so happy? And my answer to them was always the same. And it was, it's not that I'm always so happy. It's just that I'm very intentional about creating a happy life. And the follow-up question was, okay, well, how do you do that? So I was like, if I'm getting asked this question all the time, maybe this is information that other people would want. So I wrote the book, Think Happy. And now those 5 pillars, time management, getting to know your body, getting to know your heart, me time, and goal setting, those were originally the pillars that formed Think Happy, now into a business. And I've niched down quite a bit since then.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's the background. That's the whole enchilada.
Okay, great. And I do believe too, I was speaking with somebody the other day. I go regularly and I donate plasma. And one of the people there, he's like, "It's always so nice to see you. You're always so happy." I'm like, "Well, like I try to be. I'm not always, but
Yeah.
I try to be." And I said, "But it's also a bit of a choice." And so we chatted a little bit about it. And he's like, "You're right, it is." And I said, "Because, everybody goes through stuff. Everybody has problems, bad days, things that happen in life that they have no control about it. But it's how we react and respond to those situations that are kind of thrown at us. And those are the things that we have to think about. Like, I can't control what other people do, but I can control or do my best to control how I react and respond to those situations."
Oh, I could not agree with you more, Sally. Something that I often say is, we're in the driver's seat of our own lives, right? And like,
Mhm.
this is your life. You better be in that driver's seat because you're going to go on this journey of life, whether or not you're the one driving, right? You can sit in the
Right.
passenger seat and still get to the end of your life journey, but not have made any of the decisions on the route that you take to get there, right? So if we're gonna go on the
Mhm.
journey, we might as well be in that driver's seat.
Absolutely. And that is a great way to put it because we are here. And so, we need to make the best of it. And whether that's you choose to have your own business and the trials and tribulations of that, or working for a company, again, different trials and tribulations with that as well. So we're definitely going through it. And so what have you found is perhaps the hardest thing that people have had to, I guess, kind of deal with or make changes in their life? Has there been something that comes up quite often that seems to be the hardest or the most common thing that people struggle with that change within their life to be in that driver's seat?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. And as you were teeing up that question, my wheels were already turning. And this might sound cheesy, but I really truly believe that 9 times out of 10, what I hear from clients, what I hear from, people in my community is that they are their own speed bump. And the way that I like to coach, surrounding this topic is getting really clear on what the why is behind your what, right? So
Right.
and this is just, the first example that's coming to my mind, but let's say there's someone who's, like, my what is that I just really want to lose 20 pounds. Like that's what I want to do. And so I'm going to wake up early and I'm going to exercise and I'm going to eat right and I'm going to do all the things, right? That's all well and good, and that will work with you at the beginning phases of trying to make these changes, of trying to change your habits, build new routines. But what
Right.
happens when the shininess of that new habit starts to wear off, right? All of a sudden,
Mhm.
that what might not be a strong enough motivator to get you out of bed, your cozy bed
And it's
at
rainy or
5:30 in the
cold
morning when it's
outside.
rainy. Yes, exactly. That what all of a sudden is not strong enough, but the
Mm,
why, those feelings that you have that are so personal to you, that really is the reason why you want to lose the 20 pounds. that is what will help you. Maybe it's because you want to show your kids, the healthiest version of you and you want to be a good role model for them. Maybe
Mm,
it's so that you can fit into whatever outfit come Christmas dinner. I don't know, whatever that deep
mhm.
feeling is what I call the why behind the what.
Right. And I think too, so I've got a client that I'm working with right now, and her why, like she had some great positive whys, and they were good, but I found that they weren't quite strong enough. And I said to her, and I know her quite well. And I said, like, these are great whys, and they're good positive whys, but sometimes also the why is the thing we're getting away from.
Yes.
So she's starting out building a new business. And I said, like, why? And she said, I hate my job.
Oh, yeah.
There's no way I'm going to be there another 20 years, not enjoying the work. And she's been doing it. So, and I think that's normal that we do get bored with our jobs and our work. And I said, well, how do you feel when I tell you about, like, you have to get up in the morning and go to work, or you have to work there for the next 20 years? She's like, oh my God. And I said, that's part of your
Yeah.
why. And she started a little vision board and put some good things on it. And I said, great, put good things on. I said, but find a photo of yourself or that reminds you of yourself at work. And
Hmm.
whenever you don't feel like doing that, whatever that thing is, and it could be that, for some people, getting up in the morning and going for a run, it could be that writing a blog post or working on the book or shooting a video. Look at that photo and that vision board and think, those are also the things I want to get away from.
Yeah.
Like those are those pain things, like, oh my God, I don't want to do that for 20 years. Then great, because sometimes those positive things that we do want, we want them, and they're nice to have. Like, I'd like to have a bigger house. I'd like to have a better office. It would be nice, and I want them. And as you said, that wears off when kind of the going gets tough.
Yep. Exactly. Exactly.
So very, very good, I think, for both that positive and negative aspect of it. So when you work with people, do you really kind of like dig deep down into their whys? Because lots of times people, I find, will say, oh, I want to work for myself, so I can do what I want when I want. It's like, well, but what do you want to do? And
Yeah.
when do you want to do it?
Yeah. Yeah. No, 9 times out of 10, getting really clear on my client's why is our starting point. I like to start with that exercise for, any goal that is being set, for any new habit that is trying to be created, for any new routine that is trying to be built. So yeah, to answer your question simply, I would say yes.
Absolutely. We have to have that strong why. And for you, I guess, like, work is great, especially that you're able to work from home and setting out those kind of the schedule and the routine that you have with having two little ones. I'm sure part of your why is the family and the flexibility
Yep.
to that. So have you always kind of thought, like, I know you worked at the Chick-fil-A for a while, and then with your dad and stuff, and back at that time, because obviously things have changed, were you did you have your kids then? Did you have that flexibility of working from home, or was that once you had the kids, your why changed a little bit?
Yeah. So that's a really great question because back then, and when I say back then, I mean before I was doing Think Happy Co full time, I
Mhm.
always knew that I wanted to have a business that was mine. I wasn't exactly sure what that was going to look like, but I guess it was just kind of ingrained in me from an early age. My father started his business when I was 5 or 6 years old, so it was something I grew up with, and my dad did have the flexibility to be there at our sporting events and come to school for certain things, and he was very present, which I really appreciated and I loved, and that was something that I knew that I wanted to create for myself also. Now fast forward to having the two kiddos also, it's kind of like that feeling is now on steroids, Sally. Like
Mm,
I want that even more. And I mean, just the other day, I my day was completely unhinged. My son, who I can't remember if I already said this, he's 10 months old at the time of this recording. My son has a sitter that comes in for a couple hours a day so I can work while my daughter, who's 2.5, goes to Mother's Day out. Well, the sitter called in sick. And of course, as this would happen, my day was just back to back to back to back booked. And I did not feel guilty about having to reschedule things. And every client that I messaged was, oh my gosh, Kaitlin, yes, of course, totally get it. And it just felt so good. And then it turned into such an awesome day because I got all this bonus time with him, and he's so little and everything is still so new to him, and just watching him learn things and just see the world through those fresh eyes is so fun. And it was an awesome day. And I mean, I feel like I kind of live for stuff like that right now.
and that's great. And I think, like a little bit earlier, as we were talking to and mentioning that, sometimes things that we have no control over that somebody else does or whatever, it does affect us. But then it's also finding the silver linings,
Hmm.
right? Like your sitter canceled, I'm sure for good reason, and she had things, and that's fine. And I think what's great too, honestly, one of the silver linings of COVID, even though there's not many, but a couple things is we're a lot more open and understanding to working from home and more
Absolutely.
flexible of, things change. We do work from home. People probably, they won't notice, or maybe at the beginning of the video, I don't know if they heard the lawnmower going
Yeah.
outside. And so we paused and I tried to edit it out, but it was that ability. And it's like, oh, it's okay, don't worry. And so we have a lot more of that understanding. And so, finding those silver linings and going with it and just going with the flow of
Hmm.
life. I can't remember, I was listening, somebody said something that, like, really life, we have to think of it as like a flowing creek or river, whichever you prefer. Like it flows, and when there's a rock there, it flows around, like it
Yeah.
shifts a little bit, it goes around, but it still keeps going. And rivers get quite bumpy, there's rapids, there's waterfalls, but it still keeps flowing.
Yeah.
And I think that's very important. And I love what you do to keep keep that cup happy and full as it's flowing, because life gets hard sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a beautiful analogy also. I love cheesy analogies, and I might have to start using that one. I promise I will give you credit.
Oh no, don't give me credit because I don't know where I heard it from. I heard it somewhere else. I wished I would have known. I listen to so many different podcasts and read books and things like that. I definitely did not come up with it. I heard it somewhere. Before I used to think life was a highway. I used to go that one
Oh,
and say,
yeah.
sometimes it's smooth and paved, sometimes it's like a dirt, gravel, bumpy road. I
Yeah.
like the water one a little bit better, more of the flow.
Yeah, more
So,
tranquil maybe. But
mhm.
I completely agree that that has been a silver lining of COVID, and I'm sure you and I could have a whole other conversation about this, but something
Mhm.
about COVID and the work environment really seemed to humanize the workers, the employees,
Mhm.
the families that are home, the importance of having time to recover from work and refill, and just that we all have personal stuff.
Right. And I personally have always been an advocate of the 4-day work week, like way before COVID, probably
Before it
for
was even a thing.
before it was even a thing, like going back probably close to 20 years, because it just, my thought was, and this was before, so I've been working from home before even working from home was a thing, again, going back around over 20 years. Um, and and I just thought, like, with the 4-day work week, even then it's, if you're going to work 4 days a week, like, and or 5 days a week, and then you have the weekend, well, one day you're spent just cleaning your house, grocery
Mhm.
shopping, doing laundry, doing all those things. And then you have one day left to try to enjoy with family and friends, but the brain's already starting to think, oh, tomorrow I have to go back to work.
Yep.
So I've just always thought like before, I would rather work a couple extra hours each day and have a 4-day work week than 8 hours, 5 days a week. And I hope that at one point in time in the future, the 4-day work week does become normal for people and that all companies give flexibility of working from home. So even if you don't get 4-day work week, just try, like, I don't understand that people think like driving to work or you're taking the metro to work. Like so many people are so frustrated by the time they get to work that
Yep.
they're not even productive for the first while. So there's been studies to prove that people are more productive if they have those even few days to work at home. On average, I mean, there's always going to be people that take advantage. There's always going to be people that don't work. There's people that go to the office and don't work.
And don't work
So,
also. Yes, exactly.
right? So I definitely think that that's great. So if somebody, so we know that people really should really focus on their why, the positive and the negative, what they're moving away from, what they're going towards. What's another thing that do you think is a really big thing for them to think about or work on or consider when they're trying to make sure that they're keeping their cup as full as they can?
Oh, yeah. So when it comes to keeping your cup filled, something that I like to look at is also having a well-rounded cup, right?
Mhm.
So thinking about, physically, how are we taking care of ourselves? Mentally, emotionally, how are we taking care of ourselves? And so for me personally, that looks like a lot of it is the time I spend in the morning before the rest of my family wakes up. I get some time just to have quiet coffee or to exercise or something like that. And it also looks like, making sure I'm fueling my body well, getting in intentional movement, things like that. So I I I guess to answer your question, one thing that I think gets forgotten is just, yes, keeping our cups full, but also making sure it's well-rounded. I
Mhm.
mentioned that I like, cheesy analogies. I teach
Mhm.
one, it's about a lavender latte, one of my favorite drinks. I it's like my splurge coffee drink.
Okay.
And so
Mhm.
the ingredients to this latte is obviously steamed milk, espresso, and a lavender infused honey. And so that creates the perfect, well balanced, delicious, warm beverage. And so I use that analogy of mind, body, and heart for keeping our own personal internal cups balanced.
Right. And it's important to have that. I travel a lot and I'm in various countries. And kind of one thing that I like when I'm in Europe is I still get up early in the morning. I get up between 5:30, 6 o'clock usually each morning. And what I like when I'm in Europe is most of my clients are in North America. So I have my full morning of getting up, going to the gym, meditating, reading at least a few pages in a book, whatever book I'm reading, and then by about 1 o'clock usually is when I'm starting to get some, maybe some calls or emails. I can respond to emails before that, but that's when stuff is starting to come in more.
Mhm.
And I really love kind of that relaxed morning
Oh,
hour. And then
yeah.
I do work more into the evening, sometimes 7, 8, or maybe even 9 if I'm doing a podcast or something. And I don't mind doing that. I don't do it every day, but it just doesn't seem so bad when I've had those hours in the morning to get into the day and start my routine. And yeah, sometimes I'm already online answering emails at about 10 or 11, but it's kind of that my choice to slowly start the day as
Yeah.
opposed to Sometimes I roll out of bed and I'm terrible that I have my laptop on the bed sometimes. So sometimes I don't even roll out of bed and I grab the laptop and I'm like, oh, I got to get back to these emails and just
Yeah.
start the
Dive
day
right in.
before anything. And I'm really trying to curve that habit because I know it's a bad habit.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds like a great way to start the day. The Europe version, not the laptop in the bed version.
Right, right. Right. So yeah, at this time I'm in Canada now, so I'm in the Canadian version of it. But I will be heading back to Europe to be in that part too. And I get though, because it is harder, I'd have to be up really early here to try to get that in
Mhm.
because I'm in the same time zone. And it's
Yeah.
weird though, because part of me thinks it's also just a mindset. If I
Oh,
still
yeah.
got up earlier, maybe a little bit earlier, and did the things and started my day later, but I don't know. It's shifting that mindset for me. It's I can do it when I'm in Europe because everybody's sleeping here, but here it's oh, everybody's awake, so I need to be up and working.
Yeah. Yeah.
So great. So you are based in Houston.
Mhm. I am.
So if people wanted to get in touch with you, so you have your book, you have
Mhm.
coaching as well, and I thought there was
Yeah.
something else.
A podcast. Yeah.
Oh, your podcast,
So
right?
it is very easy to remember everything. Some people say I'm not original. Some people say I'm a genius at branding. Everything is called Think Happy. So my
Perfect.
book, Think Happy, the podcast, the Think Happy podcast, and my Think Happy Co. Best place to find me is on Instagram. And yeah, would love to chat more. So find me there.
Perfect. And what we'll do is we'll make sure that we have all those links in the show notes because then it makes it easy for everybody to find you. So if you're just listening now, I mean, I'm pretty sure everybody's going to remember Think Happy,
Yeah.
but if not, just to make it even easier, if you're listening on your computer or something, we'll make sure that we have all of those links in the show notes for everyone.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you very much for joining us. And to those listeners, definitely think happy thoughts and get in touch with Kaitlin or get her book. I'm sure you will enjoy it.